Hi, Charlie here. We all have that one house in our neighborhood that is the creepy house. Maybe it's rumored to be haunted, or maybe a terrible crime happened in the house years ago and it's been abandoned ever since. Normally when something terrible happens in a house, it's either abandoned, sold on, or turned into a museum. But here are some houses with backstories so scary that they couldn't even be resold. In some cases, the house was so scary that it had to be demolished immediately. 284 Green Street. This house can be found in Enfield, London in the UK. In the 1970s, single mother Peggy Hodgson and her 4 kids moved into this house. But within weeks of moving in, the 4 children began hearing knocking sounds coming from inside the walls. The 2 children who heard this most were Margaret, age 13, and Janet, age 11. The family were worried, so called the police. The police got there and saw a chair wobble and slide around without anyone moving it, and also heard the same noises coming from inside the walls. Later on, the family heard scary voices. They also heard loud thumping noises in the night and saw toys being thrown around rooms. Chairs began being turned over and their children began levitating. Over a period of 18 months, more than 30 people confirmed this. This included neighbors, researchers, and journalists. The story was covered in the Daily Mirror newspaper, and this caught the attention of the BBC, who were very skeptical. But in 1978, things began to get even more weird. Researchers set up a motion camera inside Janet's bedroom. They indeed caught photos of her levitating in the night. Eventually, the BBC went to the house and interviewed Janet. This was to demonstrate that Janet had been possessed. Just as she had been doing for many months, Janet began speaking in a deep voice.
No.
Who's there?
Doctor, Ghost Chase is here.
She called herself Bill with this voice. Eventually, journalists found records of 284 Green Street. They found out that years before, a man named Bill had owned this house. He had passed away in this house from mysterious circumstances. There would have been no way for Janet to know that Bill used to own this house. Also, it's not known how a teenage girl could get her voice to sound this deep. Many incredibly respected researchers and reporters confirmed this story was true. It's not known whether the house is still haunted to this day, but people who live near the house say they are still terrified of it. The curtains are almost never opened, and the words "Jesus House" are on the windows, presumably to ward off any bad spirits. The Hodgson family no longer live here, but it's not known who does, if anyone. It's safe to say this is one of the scariest houses in Britain. House of Horrors. The house we just saw is one of the scariest houses in the UK, but the House of Horrors is said to be Britain's most scary house. So scary that it had to be completely wiped off the face of the earth. 25 Cromwell Street used to be owned by Fred and Mary West. Over the years, this couple took many lives. Between 1973 and 1987, the couple took 12 lives. For nearly 2 decades, they lived among everyone else as normal citizens. But in 1994, what they did was uncovered. You see, Fred took the life of one of his own daughters, and would often tell his other children that they would end up like her. He said that she was under the patio and they would join her if they didn't do what he said. Eventually, one of their children told this to police. Police took it very seriously and dug up the patio of the house. Underneath, they found the remains of 9 individuals, including that of their missing daughter. Everyone was so scared of this house, it was demolished by the city. It was obliterated, wiped off the face of the earth. This was to make sure that no one could take anything from the house for any reason. Authorities did not want cults to take any parts of the house. Otherwise, it could have been used in rituals. And they also did not want anyone to take parts of the house and sell it to make a profit. That's why today there's a big missing gap in this otherwise terraced road. The Sally House. The Sally House is named after a girl who used to live here. She passed away during an operation that took place inside the house. But Sally is not the only ghost haunting this house. It's said that many spirits occupy this creepy house. In 1992, Tony and Deborah Pickman moved in. They said that lights would randomly turn on and off. Their dog would manically bark in certain rooms, and their baby would often start crying in the night as if someone had woken it up. Tony once even saw Sally in the kitchen when he went downstairs one night. He sketched what he saw and showed it to the child of a previous owner. The child of the previous owner then said, "That's Sally, an imaginary friend I used to have." Let me just jump in here and tell you guys that Top 10's merch is now available. You can get the Area 51 t-shirt or the 30 Facts You Didn't Know t-shirt. Links are in the description and comments. Monte Cristo Homestead. This house, built in 1885, is said to be Australia's most haunted house. The entire family who originally lived in this house all passed away in mysterious ways. A son was caught in a fire, a girl fell down the stairs, and even a maid fell from a balcony. The family's mentally ill son was kept locked up in a cottage near the house. But one day him and his mother were both found not alive inside the cottage. Since then, many people who have gone on to own this house have passed away, some from mysterious but explainable causes, and some actually had their lives taken inside the house, but it's not known by who. The Bender's family home. In the Old West of the USA, there used to be a family who would take many lives. They would then hide these people's remains beneath a trapdoor in their one-room cabin. If this sounds like the plot of a horror movie, it's because horror movies have been inspired by this very story. The Bender family lived in Kansas. The family consisted of John and Kate Bender, as well as their children who were also named John and Kate. They made their cabin into an inn and shop for passing visitors. It seemed like a great place for travelers to stay, but eventually travelers began to go missing. Eventually, surrounding counties caught on. The people who lived in the local towns demanded answers, and initially everyone suspected the Benders. But they weren't watched or investigated. Eventually, they abandoned the inn. As soon as they left, their property was searched. But when townsfolk searched the cabin, they were not prepared for what they found. The Benders had taken all of their personal belongings. All the townsfolk saw inside was a trapdoor that had been nailed shut. They pried it open, and underneath the house they found a 6 feet deep small room. Inside, 11 remains were found. Other body parts were also found though, and it's now believed that the Benders took around 20 lives. It's not known where the Benders ran off to. A $3,000 reward was placed upon their heads, but no one ever claimed it. Villa de Vecchi. This house is the most haunted place in all of Italy. This abandoned mountain mansion was built in 1854. It was owned by Count de Vecchi. He was the head of the Italian National Guard. One day he returned home and found his daughter missing and his wife no longer alive. A year later, the Count was so sad that his daughter and wife were gone that he took his own life inside the mansion. Ever since then, it's been abandoned and also haunted. Locals say that the mansion's piano plays by itself every single night. Many occultists, such as Aleister Crowley, have gone to this house and performed rituals. This mansion is now a hotbed for ghosts and Satanists. The Myrtles Plantation. This mansion in Louisiana, USA is a former plantation. 12 spirits are said to haunt this house, the most prominent ghost being Chloe, the child of a former slave. The remaining ghosts are spirits of a large amount of people who have had their lives taken here. It's believed 11 people have had their lives taken inside this house. One of these events happened in 1871. That was when then-owner William Winter was taken out by a robber. The TV show Unsolved Mysteries even tried to film an episode at this plantation, but when they did, their cameras malfunctioned and would not record. They also kept hearing the sound of footsteps when no one was around. But now it's time for you guys to make your voice heard. Comment below which of these houses was the most scary. If you want some more amazing videos, then check out my second channel. But as always, thanks for watching. There are some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.